Welcome back, everyone, to the late night review. And tonight I want to review, it has to do with one of my favorite characters in history. The character I grew up with that I've talked about before on the channel, Superman. And I've always loved Superman. He's always been my number one superhero. Ever since I was a kid, the comic books, the movie with Christopher Reeve, love that stuff. Ton of nostalgia for it. Tonight I'm talking about Man of Steel, starring Henry Cavill, Russell Crowe, Kevin Costner. This is a good movie. I think it's a solid Superman movie. Now, if you've seen my channel for a certain length of time, you know I love Christopher Reeve. I love the original Superman movies, all four of them, in fact, even four, 3 and 4, even though the special effects in part 4 were not good. I kind of enjoy Superman 4 the same way I enjoy the Hercules, Steve Reeves, Hercules older movies. I really like Superman 4. That's me. I love all 4 movies with Christopher Reeve. Superman with Christopher Reeve, still my favorite superhero movie of all time. I love all 4 movies, by the way. Superman is with Christopher Reeve. He will always be my Superman. If you've seen my videos about Superman in the past, doing the reviews on Christopher Reeve's Superman, and then Supergirl with Helen Slater, you'll know that Christopher Reeve is the Superman I grew up with. I grew up with George Reeves, though, too. I saw reruns of his show, The Adventures of Superman. I grew up with that. I grew up with The Adventures of Superboy, also the show that came on later. When I got older, they had that one. But Christopher Reeve in the Superman movies were just at another level. He will always be my Superman. But Man of Steel is good. It's a solid Superman movie. I think Henry Cavill is a good Superman. I wish that he would have continued to be Superman for a while, but they didn't do that. I think he got a bad deal. I wish he would have gotten the role. No offense to any new people who get it, but I think Henry Cavill was a good Superman. A solid Superman, had the build, had the look. I wish he would have had the S curl a little bit more often in his portrayal of Superman, but I enjoyed Man of Steel. I'm not a fan, as you know, if you've seen my Superman reviews, I'm not a fan of the dark Superman uniforms, none of the patent leather looking kind of Superman uniforms. His uniform in here looks pretty good, but I'm more of a fan of the original, the way Superman has always looked for most of the decades that the character's been in existence. For most of the decade that Superman's character has been in existence, he's had a bright uniform. Sometimes dark, but predominantly bright. That's the one I grew up with. The Superman uniform that Christopher Reeve donned, the one that he wore, was the Silver Age, Bronze Age type Superman costume. The bright, colorful, powerful looking colors. And not only were they bright, but there's almost like a glow kind of emanating power coming from that classic uniform. Love the classic uniform. I think they need to go back to that in the coming years, and go back to the original design too, not kind of a Star Trek type design for the collar up here. I love the original look of Superman. When you got a masterpiece, don't change it unless you change it for the better. Like Shazam, his costume, it looks just as good, if not better today. He's one of the rare characters where they actually improved on the costume, or it's just as good, depends on what type you like. His costume is one of the few that actually was improved upon, but not Superman. It seems to get worse. Sometimes it comes back, but the bright colors are the way to go. That's just a master stroke by a lot of the past artists and the designers of the Christopher Reeve's uniform. But I like Man of Steel. I think the pacing's good. I like the story. I seen parts of it years ago when it first came out. I couldn't continue watching it because I was kind of in the mode where Superman, the way I look at him, the Superman I grew up with was Silver Age, Bronze Age, the bright colors like Christopher Reeves had. Those were the colors. And so when I saw his uniform, and then with the kind of the dark version of Krypton in Man of Steel, instead of the bright version with the bright white glowing uniforms like with Marlon Brando in the original, I really couldn't get past that, and certain other things I couldn't get past, his uniform being so dark. So I stopped watching it, but then I watched it again later, the whole thing, because I'm a Superman fan, and I enjoyed it. I think Henry Cavill did a good job. I think everyone in the movie performed well. I think there were a good performance across the board. They did what they were expected to do in a superhero movie. And one thing I will say about the Man of Steel and the fight scenes in here is I actually prefer the fast pace and the flowing form of the fights in here to the Christopher Reeve movies. I always liked the Christopher Reeve fights, but I always thought they should have been a little bit faster paced. This one has a faster pace, and I like the fast, kind of more of a faster pace fight scenes in the Man of Steel more than the original Superman movies. I like the way they did the fights in Man of Steel better. But that being said, I wish they wouldn't have been so close to the characters and kind of back up the camera so you could see everything. That's one of the things I liked about the original movies with Christopher Reeve. When they're fighting, the camera's not so close, you could see everything. But that's with a lot of movies, even martial arts movies too. The older ones, you back up, you can see everything, and you see the actors working, you see them do these things. So I like that better. But I do like the faster paced fights that we get in the Man of Steel. But the Christopher Reeve Superman movies are still my favorites. I love the colors. Man of Steel is well done, but it didn't, obviously it did not have the classic score by John Williams. It it should. I think every Superman movie should have that score in it because it's such a masterpiece. The original with Christopher Reeve had so many things going for it that the new ones don't have, but I think the Man of Steel is a solid Superman movie, and then the depiction of Zod in here was pretty good. That classic performance by Terrence Stamp, though, is really, really hard to beat. I thought that they did a good job in here, though. The Zod character and the interaction between him and Superman. Then, of course, they had the fight. And I enjoyed it. I think The Man of Steel is a solid Superman movie, has a good pace, good action. I thought it was interesting what they did with the character, some of the struggles that he had, not only as an adult, but as a kid, you know, who to save him, when to reveal who you are. And that was a tough scene to watch with Kevin Costner. You know, the fact that what happened to him. And all my reviews are pretty much spoiler reviews. And most of the time I talk about movies that I grew up with and have nostalgia for. This is not one of those. I'm an 80s kid. I was born in 77, so the Man of Steel came out, I mean, not too long ago in terms of that. It's one of the newer movies that I've ever reviewed, so I have no nostalgia for it. I saw it later, obviously, as an adult. I didn't grow up watching it. Came out too late for that, but it's a good movie. Uh, this is a spoiler review, but Kevin Costner, obviously, he plays Pa Kent and Ray's Superman. You know the story. The way he dies it's sad that he couldn't. He told him not to save him. Basically, he said, don't save me. I don't want them to know who you are. I wish there was a way where he could have saved him without revealing to people who he was. I That was kind of tough to watch, but in the original Superman with Glenn Ford, he died of a heart attack. It was more simple. That worked for me more than the Kevin Costner death of Kent, Mr. Kent, and yeah, it was a good movie though. I really liked Man of Steel. But the death of his father in the original worked for me more than the tornado death here in Man of Steel. But it's a good movie, and I think that it's a worthy addition to the Superman plethora of movies, to the whole Superman genre. I think it's a worthy addition. I think Man of Steel uh, deserves credit as being a good Superman movie. I will always like the original Superman movies the best, unless they come out with a new one. Now, I would like, it's possible that I might like a new one just as much as the old one, the old Superman movies, if they went back to the original formula. And if they went back to kind of the Silver Age or Bronze Age Superman with kind of the same kind of outfit, with these magnificent stories from these comic books, if they did it with the score like from John Williams, if they had Brainiac, or they had Dark Side, which I know they do. They do have Dark Side. I know they do, and they have Brainiac nowadays. But if they did it with that old school formula and made it very similar to, not copy, but made it very similar to the Christopher Reeve movies with that score, and they have the right Superman playing the part, it's possible I might like it just as good as the original. But I'm not sure if they're going to do that. But I wish they would. I've talked about this before. My dream Superman movie would be Christopher Reeve as Superman, or Clint Walker as Superman, and then maybe Telly Savalas as Lex Luthor. And obviously, this will never happen. They're gone. But Telly Savalas as Lex Luthor, and as Brainiac, maybe Yul Brynner. And I think there's so many ideas available. I mean, like Richard Donner said, great director, said, we have the Bible of Superman. Basically, it's all these comic books that have come out over the years. There's so many stories available because they've been written already. And then they can be adapted, they could be adjusted for the screen, of course, and made into more like of a serious movie. So there's plenty of stories available. I think they could do it, have the original type of uniform, go back to the prototype of Superman, how he looked in those comic books from the Silver Age and Bronze Age, and have the original score, have some of those wonderful villains from the comic books. Take it serious. You can have your goofy moments and your funny parts, too, like all the Superman movies. Sometimes they'll have a little humor in them. Definitely. That's kind of the comic book thing. But make it serious, make it really, really. I mean, there's so many serious parts, like in the original Superman movies as well, with Christopher Reeve, where he's at the Fortress of Solitude learning from his dad, and then you have his uniform reveal. Then, of course, earlier you had the death of Pa Kent on the ranch. Then later with Lois Lane, and then there's a lot of serious moments in the original Superman movies. If they use that old formula, I think they could do it again, but it's unlikely. I think it's unlikely, but I wish they would. But anyway, the Man of Steel is a good Superman movie, a solid one. I enjoyed it. I think the fight scenes were good. They flowed pretty well. And I recommend it. I think it's a good movie with Henry Cavill. This has been the Late Night Review. Please like and subscribe. It helps me, helps the channel. and share this video, hype it up and pump it up. And have a good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.